Man had so much power and authority back there when I believe everything that was owned by the man. Women only until about that same time where women had the rights to own land. You remember the part of the world where women can't own land. Like if you have enough money to buy land, you have to find a man, a brother or an uncle or husband to
This
put the land in their name, right? So I think it was obvious that if there was a separation, the husband or the man probably has everything in their name and owned everything.
right.
And where does the woman go? I'm sure the courts were as biased
Yeah.
towards women
Right.
as they are towards men today in certain.
Today we are talking about prenuptial agreements, the ins and outs of it. So basically, prenuptial agreement is an agreement made before marriage between two people who are in love with each other. It's here in the West, so not very common from where we are from. But I was in preparation for this live, I was doing a little research. It shows that this is from the National Prenuptial Statistics. I don't know where that is from. But it says almost 50% of unmarried people believe prenups can be helpful. It also says 63% of people said that they will feel intimidated or at higher risk for divorce if their partner asks them to sign a prenup. Then he went on to say for those who are divorced, 15% of people who recently divorced wish they had crafted a prenup agreement. So from these basic statistics, it shows that there's not agreement on this topic. There are people who wholeheartedly support prenups and others who are kind of not in favor. So we're here to talk about all of that. If you do a little bit of digging, you see that there are quite some legal advantages to prenups, particularly if you're coming to the marriage with a significant amount of assets. Not so much for people who are coming in with debt. It might also be advantageous for people who have kids from a previous marriage and want to be very precise as to how marital or premarital assets are distributed should there be dissolution of the marriage. So the basic idea of prenup is that should there be a case of divorce, people or the couples have a clear idea of how they want to divide assets. Um, so this is just a basic summary of what a prenup is. I don't know a lot of people who have done one. All the people I know is mostly celebrities, people in the news and stuff like that. But personally, I don't know if I know anyone who has a prenup. Do you
And,
know anyone who
and
personally?
that definitely begs the question as to is prenuptial agreement something for everyone in terms of the level of wealth or the level of status or where you are in life.
Maybe
Uh,
it speaks to our circle. We don't know a lot of rich people who are coming to marriage with a lot of assets. I don't know why I keep pronouncing this wrong. A lot of assets.
that's it. Right.
It was. Um, we're probably just two broke guys who don't have a lot of rich friends.
You think because again, even back even with people who have a little bit of money. I mean, I had mates who had businesses and had a little bit of money going into marriages, but I never heard any of them
Yeah.
speak to you know, a prenuptial agreement. Like it's not something that comes to mind when young men are thinking about marriage, especially back home.
Yeah.
Probably here in the West, rich people, you know, even if you don't think about it, your parents and your family would tell you, man, you can't get into this marriage without protecting what you already have, you know. So yeah, I mean, again, like you said, we are two broke guys with little or nothing, so it might not be it might not be something that we're thinking about. But I think the question now is I'm going to ask you is it for everyone?
It is for people who have significant assets coming to marriage. It is for people who have inheritance that they want to protect. It's for people who are realists in the sense that the number of divorce in the West and in Africa is increasing now. It's pretty significant. So people who are very realist in the outlook of life, like, you know what,
Mhm.
potential, how can we legally protect ourselves should that happen? You can make an argument that that is already a setup for failure. Yes, but the fact is there are still divorces happening,
Mhm.
and it's a reality of life. So should you go on with your life as if these things don't happen, or should you just put your best foot forward and protect yourself? And if you have the significant amount of assets and money.
Mhm. I think there are a few obvious facts that I came across. Well, that I came up with respect to prenuptial agreement. The first is we may love each other. That does not mean that we fully trust each other.
Right.
Why is that?
Because divorce is messy. Because you had two people, there's a thin line between love and hate. When divorce happens, it becomes a business transaction. It's no longer
Mhm.
and love and all the butterflies you felt before. People become very contentious.
Mhm.
The person that you love has a knife to your throat when it comes to dividing assets because there's a lot at stake.
Mhm.
You're supposed to fully trust each other. You're supposed to fully love each other and share everything with each other. Sometimes people have to give up careers just to support families. Sometimes people have to advance in their career as well. So it becomes a really contentious issue when there's a lot at stake.
Yes. Second assumption that I made is that with a prenup, it simply tells us that marriages do come to an end.
It,
There's no happily ever after for some people, for most people, generally speaking. And the only reason why you want a prenuptial arrangement is because you're not sure how long this marriage would last.
right. I,
And I don't think anybody can stand anywhere and boast that my marriage is going to last till death do us part. There's no guarantee, right?
there isn't any guarantee. So would it be wise to have a prenuptial agreement or not?
Definitely wise to.
It,
Because again, marriage might end again, and there are multiple ways this marriage could end. It could end with me dying, or it could end with you leaving me, or me leaving you. However, you want to put it, right? So if we all know that this thing, there's no guarantee it's going to last forever and ever, as we all want it to, why shouldn't I want to protect myself
yeah,
in case this thing ends in a messy way, like most divorces end? Divorces are always messy,
they always.
right? It would make sense for me to protect myself.
So yeah, in a case, it's people being real and people looking at it and like, you know what? I'm not saying that we're going to divorce, but there is a potential going to happen. So why not safeguard yourself, safeguard your spouses, and it doesn't mean that you guys have to be mean to each other.
Mhm.
It just have to appreciate what is bringing to the marriage and uh,
Mhm.
talk about what will happen in case it divorce. Because again, that's the reality of life. Like the marriage is divorce. Like nobody wants that. Nobody goes in a marriage for it to end.
To end, right?
Yeah, but
But it does end. Another thing I wanted to, again, another assumption that I came up with was that, what does a decision to get a prenuptial agreement tell us about our human instincts in terms of our self-interest, or in terms of self-preservation, or just human selfishness?
well, you said it tells you how selfish people can be. Um, and I'm not entirely sure who's more selfish, the person who's bringing up the prenup or the person who's refusing to sign one.
It wouldn't it tell you a lot? if somebody denies to sign the prenuptial agreement?
If you truly love somebody, signing a prenup should not be a problem. If somebody's coming to a marriage with tons of millions of dollars, lots of property, and you claim to be there for the love of that
For
person,
love, right?
you should be able to sign the prenup. After all, you're only there for love. You're not there for money.
Mhm.
But it will amaze how many people have a problem with their partners. And again, this is not a conversation that concerns me and you.
Mhm.
It'd be amazing how many people have a problem with their partner that brings up a prenup, and they start questioning, do you really love me? If you love me, you
Mhm.
bring in prenup. And oftentimes the argument is, I really love you. That's why I'm bringing prenup. And you should really sign because you really love me and you don't care about money or asset and stuff like that.
In all honesty, they do care. Most of the time, if the man had nothing, you would not even give him a second look. So
Yeah.
you could pretend that you don't care about what this guy has in terms of assets or property or money, but somewhere down deep inside you, you know fully well that yes, one of the reasons why I'm wanting to get into this is because of the money. And the more you deny to sign a prenuptial agreement, the more people one could conclude that money is or his wealth is one of the reasons why you're choosing to get into a relationship with him.
Now, why would you not sign one if you really love him for who he is? So I tend to lean towards the fact that it speaks more of the person who's refusing to sign the prenup than the person who's proposing the prenup. Uh,
Mhm.
if you are trying to protect yourself, I mean, I assume you have worked hard your whole life, or even if you inherited money from parents or stuff like that, you still have a duty to be able to look at all the circumstances of life, look at the realities of marriages that a lot of them do end in divorce, and to protect yourself. So if you have a significant other who is refusing to sign, I'll say it really speaks more to them than it does to you. Also, I have to say, in my research, is prenup doesn't necessarily mean you're not responsible for your spouse. I mean, during the marriage, you are still responsible for your spouse, and you have to provide financially should your wife, and in very unique circumstances, husband stays home to be the homemaker. You still have a responsibility to provide for them. So it's really in case of divorce. So um, um, I think most people can easily conflate that you don't have to care about your family while you're in the marriage because you signed a prenup. No, you're still responsible for your family. The conditions of prenup are very limited to cases of divorce or dissolution.
And again, it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't, again, like you said, the man or the woman here comes in this marriage with responsibilities, and it doesn't matter how you feel, you have to meet those responsibilities. And even though sometimes it might require to move assets or property or money from your properties or assets you own previously to the marriage, move it into the marriage and help take care of the family. But because again, that is for, right? In case of a divorce, well, we want to talk about what we both own.
Right.
We need to leave aside everything else that had nothing to do with you, because again, whatever I got before I got married to you technically has nothing to do with you. You contributed nothing to helping me get it. You were not part of my life
Mhm.
when I got whatever it is I got before marriage. We had no relationship. There was no connection here, right? So when we decide to end a marriage or end a marriage, there's no need for you to be focus on the things that I brought into the relation. Just like, of course, I don't have to. I will not be paying attention to the things that you brought into the marriage. But again, it has to be clearly defined what you are bringing in, right? Because again, I think from the start you could clearly identify, okay, this is what I'm bringing in, that is what I'm bringing in. You can calm down and identify everything. Once you're already in a marriage, things get mixed up,
Things,
jumbled up,
yeah,
right? it,
prenup,
it becomes it becomes either difficult or impossible to clearly state what was brought in,
right.
right? So that creates a little bit of a difficulty there. Yeah.
We cannot stress this enough, or I can't stress this enough. Prenup is for a particular set of people who are highly successful before marriage,
Uh-huh.
anybody. And I bet you the majority of people do not fall in this category of people who are highly successful before they before they get into a relationship. So I'm thinking of superstars, in entertainment, athletes, people like that, people who have made significant amount before they consider getting married. So most average people tend to make wealth within the context of marriage. So it doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily, most people get into marriage broke, or not broke, but at least they have the basics, but not enough
Mhm.
to that prenup.
To worry about the prenup.
Right. So this is really for a significant, the number of people who are to be concerned about prenup is significantly lower. I mean,
Mhm.
unfortunately, you have a family business and your parents die before you get when you're still young. Yeah, that's fair. But for the majority of people, we don't have enough money to even consider this. Know what I mean?
Because again, I think even just the cost of getting a prenup here in Canada, US, you could spend up to 2,500 averagely, and it could go up to about $10,000 to engage lawyers to pay for their time to get to sit down and walk through these documents. Right? It takes money, and again, if you don't own $10,000, why should you spend $10,000 on something that you don't even own? But again, I think again just bringing it back, I think we Africans back home, people don't think about prenuptial agreements because usually when a divorce happens, I don't know if I should say there's an assumption that the man owns everything. And very rarely, except probably now, very rarely do you hear women go to court and say, I'm suing my husband because I think I deserve some of whatever it is that he has, right? Do you see that as a reason why we don't really pay attention to that? Would that be a reason, you think?
I think so. I think the whole legal concept of prenup is not very well developed in Africa as it is in the West, and there are many reasons you can advance for that. The cultural dynamic between man and woman in Africa, the family involvement in married couples as well, the lack of ability to even the lack of awareness of the legal implications of divorce, of marriage and divorce and stuff like that. I think those all play in all the prenup stuff. Also, a lot of people just do traditional weddings and they don't have any legal bindings together. So all those things play in. Um, um, if I were to make a guess, I would say culture plays a big role.
Yeah.
Lack of education on that does play a big role. The legal system as well does play a big role. Religion does play a big role too. So people are not as focused on material gains. First of all, a lot of people are broke in Africa. Yeah. So what do you want to do? Do you want to divide your father's farm, corn farm, in the bush somewhere that produces maybe like $100,000, 100,000 francs in a year? Do you want to divide family property of some old tattered house somewhere? You know, people in
But isn't things like that, the things like that belong to the family that you come from,
the
because you are the successor and you inherited a little piece of land doesn't mean that you take this piece of land into your marriage and deal with it as if it were yours, because you are simply holding this piece of land on behalf of every member of your family, right? So it's their land as well.
it's their land as
So
well.
doesn't it deserve some sort of protection?
It does deserve some protection. So, but that is not considered your land. That's considered family land. So that should not even be the case of prenup conversation because it's not your personal land, is it?
When you so successors don't own anything they inherit.
Oh, so but I thought you meant family land. Family land is different from it.
No, if your dad had a piece of land and because you are the successor and you inherit that piece of land, it's still not yours, is it?
I think it's yours. Why
No,
not yours? Why isn't whose is it?
it's the family. You're simply holding it on behalf of everyone else because everyone can't hold.
then your dad should have specified that this is family land. I'm not giving it to you. Um, I, I I think when you inherit something and when something is specifically handed down to you, yeah, it's yours. And should you use it to honor the family name? Yes, but you ultimately decide what you do with that. You know what I mean? You can inherit stuff in the name of the family. That is different from personally inherit.
Mhm. But in that case, if you don't have a prenup, you can't turn around and say, no, that isn't part of this because I inherited it from my family or from my father or whatever that is, and it's not part of my immediate family. Can you make that argument when things get when things get milky? Because again, at that point now everything is in contention, right?
Yeah,
Now you have to start justifying why something should not be included, or should not be included in the divorce settlement. You don't.
if you inherit something and it was given to you and you have 100% custody, and
Mhm.
and you do not sign a prenup and then divorce happens, that is part of the legal implications of divorce. Your land is up for grabs by the other partner. So
Mm.
if you don't want it to be up for grabs, then leave it in the family name. You know what I mean? But it was clearly handed to you for your own personal gains and your personal growth, or part of your inheritance by your deceased parent. I think it's yours and should be part of it. It is, whether you like it or not, it's part of any legal implications when divorce occurs.
Okay.
If it's like you inherited $1 million, well, yeah, you inherited $1 million, so now it's in your name. And if you don't sign a prenup, you get married and you have a divorce, and the spouse is legally entitled to that money too, because it's part of family money.
Mm. Okay. So again, the inheritance, you bring it into that marriage, again, it remains, it transforms into, it's not your private outside your extended family's business. It is the immediate family business, right?
Yeah. Oh no, it's part of family. It's part of family asset. So
Good. Could we talk a little bit about some of the advantages of getting? I know we've been, raising a few points, but I think maybe we should pick specifics and kind of talk a little bit about why it might be a good thing for someone to contemplate or to think about or to have a
hey,
prenup.
if you own a business, before you got married, a lot of people are successful businessmen before they get married. Particularly here in the West, prenup is something to consider. If you own a significant amount of money in the bank, if you have $1 million, now that you've worked really hard, you know, you spend years to be able to raise that kind of the bank. Prenup is something to consider. If you inherited property,
Mm-hmm.
now in your name, prenup is something to consider. If you have an intellectual property, say you wrote a book, say you sold a patent for something that you created, prenup is something to consider. You know what I mean? If you have a
Mm.
somewhere, you know, if you've been married before and then you and your ex-wife, you guys generated a significant amount of income, and unfortunately, you guys split and you get into a new marriage. Yeah,
You want to protect
yeah,
yourself, protect your kids if you had kids from that previous marriage, right?
and protect yourself and the offspring from the previous marriage. You know what I mean?
Mm. Okay.
If you're coming to a marriage, there are a lot of people who get married at old, maybe second or third marriage in their 50s or 60s. They've been contributing to their retirement for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
You want to protect that, definitely.
So you also want to protect, you know, and it's not only just protecting but assets of people also have to protect their interest in the marriage. If you're a stay-at-home parent, you also have to put in clauses in the prenup that will protect you in case of dissolution of that. You will still need some sort of spousal support, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily only the person who's bringing in assets and money. It's also you protecting yourself should divorce happen, that you're entitled to some
Okay. Right.
money.
What about those who argue? And there's an argument out there that the process of getting a prenuptial agreement contributes to strengthening a marriage.
Yeah,
What do you think about that argument? I could elaborate, but maybe I'll let you
I tend to.
tell me what you think.
It shows that you guys are not coming up with any hidden agenda, and I think you're putting your best foot forward. Again, this is not for everybody. If you're broke ass, just stay quiet. This is not for you. But if you're coming with all these things that we've listed, a huge land, a huge amount of inherited property or finances, it shows that you can tell that someone really loves you for you without necessarily someone really cares about you, and they are not really concerned about all the things that you bring into the marriage.
Mhm.
Important, yeah. But I think it helps you put your best foot forward. It takes out all the emotions that can cloud judgment before you get into a marriage. Again, this does not weigh the spousal support that the spouse is entitled to while they're in the marriage.
Mhm.
Yeah, it kind of clears the way that are not there for ulterior motive. I mean, people generally married because married has a business aspect to it. But if you guys can take that out and you really focus on your relationship, I think it's better.
Some people have argued that again, just because most of the time you meet someone, you fall in love, you're in cloud nine all through until you get married, right? Most of the time, there's not a real whole lot of communication happening. All you're talking about is how you love each other, and that's it. But when you get to a point now where you have to talk about, okay, now let's talk about a prenup, you open yourself to having real conversations about real things, about money, about debt, about property, about people's ambitions in life, about where people want to see themselves in 10, 15, 20 years. Those are serious conversations to have. And if you manage to have a conversation with a woman or with a man and arrive at a conclusion, it's very likely that within the marriage, first of all, you already know how to communicate with this individual
Yeah,
thanks to because again, prenups, they are not a one day conversation. It takes time to have that conversation. It's a back and forth. People need to really open up and tell you what they think. So
right,
if you're already in a marriage, you already know what your partner thinks about life generally, about where they want to be. You definitely have a sense of where they are going to, right? You have a sense of what they're interested in. It definitely allows you people to have free, open conversations while you're in the marriage,
right.
right? Because you already know them. Secondly, conversations about money will not be new. You remember when you talk to your partner about money for the very first few conversations, you know how awkward
Yeah,
those conversations
yeah,
are. But imagine that you've cleared this awkwardness even before you got married,
yeah,
right? So having money conversations while you're already in the marriage now becomes something really light.
yeah,
And again, because of all that, there's less tension, there's less conflict,
yeah.
which means maybe your marriage is more likely to succeed because you've already eliminated most of the things that might have caused tension or disagreement in the marriage, right? Again, that is just an argument that's out there, which I think makes sense. Of course, it was a few conversations that I've had with my wife or yeah, and if I had those conversations before I got married, those conversations would have happened a lot more smoothly
Organically.
in the marriage, organically, yes, in the marriage. So I think it might just it might give you opportunity to clear some of this
Yeah.
conflicts.
But again, yeah, if you're broke, this conversation is not for you. So if you don't have any money, there really is no point. Is there? I don't know. I can't see any advantage for people who are broke, who are getting to married broke or just average. And if you guys are both average people, like, what is it? What are you guys trying to protect there,
You want to protect yourself from your partner's debts, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. This guy has gone to school all his life and has racked two, 300, 400, $300,000 in debt. And he's bringing that into the marriage. You're technically not inheriting, but you're technically assuming some of those debts, right? Do
mhm,
you want to protect yourself from that
yeah.
by saying, "Hey, you need to tell me how much money you owe out there. Tell me full disclosure. I need to know how much money you owe, and I need to know how you want to pay it back. I
But
don't want something happening and you taking some of my resources to to pay for some of the debts that you're bringing into this marriage. Is that something that people should think about? Like, should we worry about your partner's debts?
Well, I think you guys have to work together to tackle it. Again, it kind of begs the question: what is marriage? What is uniting two people together? Are you uniting all assets of marriage together? Are you uniting all debt together? Are you guys willing to tackle all these things together? Um, I'm of the opinion that you guys should be able to work together and tackle that because the dynamic is going to change. Take for example, you're a woman who has racked up $100,000, $200,000 in student loans, and you have to be a stay-home mom for a couple of years and stuff like that. First of all, if the finances are together and it's still gonna affect the husband because he is gonna be the loan is gonna be considered a family loan, and
Yes.
if he's paying that together, if he's paying that with if it's one income family, and he has to do that, so any money he makes is still gonna go to that if he chooses to take over his wife's care and support her. I don't think it's fair to just say, no, that's my wife's dead. Now that she has children, we're not going to concern about that. I think you guys should work together. I think those are things that you can discuss well in a agreement and figure out a way to solve that kind of a problem.
So the argument is full disclosure. I let you know that I have debts, and I let you know if we're getting into this marriage, and the decision is that I'm a stay-at-home mom. Someone needs to be responsible for.
Right.
But again, what you're saying is full disclosure. We have a conversation. We might not end up with an agreement in terms of a formal legal document, but we have a conversation about
Oh yeah. Yeah.
what my debts are.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think.
And depending on the structure of the structure of the family that we plan to make,
Yeah.
someone needs to be responsible for the debts that I have, right?
Yeah. Then targeting the debt, right? Yeah. Full disclosure not only for those who are having prenup. I think in marriage you should be able to tell your partner what debt you have, what debt you don't have, your attitude towards money, your attitude towards saving. Again, like you earlier listed, what are your plans for the future? You know. Yeah. But anyway, that's another discussion. Let's not go in a tangent there.
Some people, yeah, go ahead.
Did you know prenups can be thrown out by a judge in if the judge found you were dishonest, you did not fully disclose your assets and your debts. That's one reason for prenup to be revoked. So if you hit assets or debt before marriage, that's part of the discussion. If a prenup was not properly witnessed, be thrown out by the judge. So if a prenup was signed too close to the marriage, one of the partners can come and say they signed this best.
Yeah.
Out of a sound, clear mind, so it cannot hold up to that. So if I think I've said almost all of the things. So if you were not represented by a lawyer, you can say you did not understand the terms of the prenup, and the judge can throw that out. So even agreements do exist, these prenuptial agreements do exist, there are many ways that the court can throw them out if they want to enforce it in a way that was not previously agreed upon.
It's definitely a contract or an agreement, like legal document. Like most legal documents, is subject to it's subject to what word am I using? It's subject to reevaluation.
Discretion.
Yes, it's subject to that, right? When I realized, when the first time I realized that everything goes to court and everything can be thrown, everything can be disputed, is when there was a family issue where some children were challenging the will of a parent,
Right.
and they succeeded. Right? That it clearly told me that yes, once you go to court, man,
Everything is up for grasp. So
yes.
people can be disputed and thrown
Mhm.
in a prenup can be disputed. So in a sense, people, I see a lot of merit to the argument that prenup are not the end or be of premarital agreements. It can be thrown out by the judge if he finds any um,
Discrepancies,
to throw it.
illegalities, right? Because yes, if you lied about your debt or your properties, if you were deceitful, you've been hiding.
Yeah.
You hid some money down in an account in the Cayman Islands or in Malta. Yeah, we definitely need to talk about that too, right? so so definitely yes, it's not ironclad like they say.
Wow.
It can be challenged and it can be adjusted depending on the circumstances under which the agreement was gotten, right?
And for us who in Canada and in the US, we also have to know that these agreements are enforceable throughout the province. So if you sign one in Alberta, it's enforceable in Ontario, in BC, in PEI. I don't know if it's enforceable across states, across international boundaries. So I don't know what happens if we go to the United States. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. It would be nice if we had a lawyer to talk about these things.
Well, you have to go there and disappear and make sure you cannot be found. Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely run back to Cameroon
I,
and get
I,
in the jungle,
I have a feeling
right?
run to the states is still gonna get up to you one way or the other. I
Yeah,
mean, police tickets can get across
get to you.
national
Child support gets to you no matter where you are. I'm
national.
I'm sure they can get to you if you violate, or you if they need to get you for prenuptial. I think they can get you wherever. As long as you are available, as long as they have access to you. I'm sure the courts would want to hear why you're running and hiding there, right? The only way is to run to Cameroon and fall in a jungle.
Yeah,
Go to, I don't know, some village and hide.
yeah, yeah. Because if you're going to come on, there's no. I mean, there might be a legal repercussion for you there, but how do you get the money? How do you get the assets when there's no? The system is not as advanced as here for you to be able to
Mhm.
that people have. What do you think about the dynamic that's changing? A lot of prenup in back in the years used to be usually the man because the men have worked, they have significant talent or they've worked a long time on a business or they inherit the amount of money before they get married. But now women are making a lot of money. A lot of women own businesses. A lot of women are inheriting a lot of money from their parents. So I am on social media. I see a lot of women bringing up the argument. They are the ones bringing up the need for prenup to be signed. Definitely, the dynamics are changing. Um, so that's nice because a lot of women are very self-sufficient, making significant amount nowadays. So they are in a position to tell the partner, you know what, I need you to sign this prenup.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about protecting yourself. If you have something to protect, I don't see why you shouldn't. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's not whether you're a man. Prenuptial is not a man's
It's not
thing.
a gender thing, but
It,
just
it,
observation that you before it used to be a lot of men who sought protection, but
yeah,
now
because before most of those who were asking for had everything. Women in the past 20, 30 years really
it leaps and
we're
bounds.
not where they are today, right? The level of independence and the level of success that women get nowadays is not comparatively to 20, 30 years back. It's not the same. So they have good reason. They have assets, they have businesses, they have properties, they have inheritance, because now, yes, you women too do inherit from their parents, right? So they have inheritance, they have a lot. So they have good reason to want to protect what they have. And again, I'm not. I don't know if it's like it's conversations that is happening a lot more. I think people have seen and learned from the mistakes of others.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we both know all the celebrities. Those who don't have a prenup and for some reason have to divorce with their wives or their partners, yes, they it's like half is gone. Like they lose a lot, right? And I think people have learned, not just men, but I think women have learned too, that it is important for them to protect what they have. To protect what they have, because again, like you said, there's a very thin line between love and hate, between love and I need you dead, right? So people need to know that and make the effort to protect themselves. Give people reason to not create the kind of issues they would create when you divorce. Because again, if I have see me call $100 million, I don't even know what that looks like. If I have 50,000, for example,
Can dream.
not like that. If you have 50,000, for example, that you have in the bank before marriage, and you make it very clear in a prenup that that is money that I had before I met you, right? It's less likely for your partner to be on your neck for a $50,000 that is not going to be part of the divorce settlement.
Yeah.
So it's easy to deal with that. Knowing that you have $50 somewhere and there's no prenuptial agreement, yeah. I need some of that too.
Right.
I can argue. I could put down a really good argument to say why I need some of the money that you had before you met me, right?
Yeah. Do you think men will have any issue signing any prenup if their partner is making significantly more than them or has a lot of?
I don't think it's a gender thing. I think once somebody brings that up,
well,
the other partner eventually first thing.
I agree. I don't think it's a gender thing, but I think the way we are socialized and the way the innate instincts that we have as man and woman can make us analyze this thing differently.
I think that conversation rubs a man and a woman in the same way.
You think
the same way. I think somebody just telling you that we need a prenup. You sitting down and thinking about that, it tells a lot about what they think about it. Again, this is what you're thinking. It tells a lot what you think they think about you. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. If somebody says I need a prenup, you definitely are saying, do you think I'm interested in the money?
And love.
I'm sure a man thinks about that too, right? They would like, I'm not thinking about your money, so why would you bring this up?
Yeah.
They might come around to want to sign to do it quicker, with less screaming and fighting than a woman, but they definitely might have the same reaction to that conversation.
I don't think I fully agree with that, because I think men and women have different motivations for marriage. Women, I think naturally, and they should, all right, should seek for men who can take care of them, can provide for them, can make sure they have a better lifestyle than they are as a single lady. So I think women tend to look for men who generally have more, who generally can do more for them and stuff like that. That's how society has functioned over time. I don't think women look for men with resources.
But a man who is fortunate to have a woman who has a lot more than him,
right? But
falls in the same category. I'm not going to argue otherwise. It's the same. It's the same thing.
Well, but
same kind of.
I think a man's motivation to be in a relationship is totally different from a woman's motivation to be in a relationship.
Well, yes. When everything being equal, when there is an equal playing field, I have enough, you have enough. If you have a lot more than me,
right,
I definitely have an interest. I'm definitely thinking about how I survive in this relationship.
Well, that's fair. That's a fair point. Yeah. I really think that men will have an easier time signing prenups if their marriages are women.
But you said easier time.
Yeah.
Easier. Meaning there will definitely be resistance, and the hard feelings are definitely going to come.
Yeah.
Right. But again, they can easily get to the place where they say, okay, I understand why you need it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it will be easier than a woman, because again, of the things that I've listed before, we have different motivations on why we get into the relationship. man can easily love a woman who makes money and doesn't have an interest. Let me say this way: a
Rephrase.
man can easily love a woman who has more money, and the money is not big of an issue than a woman who has money. Like,
I think a man is more capable to demonstrate that the money is not
again,
why they are getting into a relationship
yeah,
than a woman.
doesn't feel entitled to the
Mhm.
than than a woman will feel entitled to man's money. And I think legally, religiously, you should be entitled to your husband's money, because if you guys come into marriage and you have a family together, of course, the family money is supposed to take care of the family. But because men are not predisposed to have children and to take care of children and to be dependent on other people financially, because we are socialized and innately we think we have to provide, I don't think we will have much of an issue to sign a prenup than a woman would. Not
Yeah.
today. They will be, but the resistance will not be.
Mhm.
If I'm making sense.
Yeah, definitely. I agree that again. Yeah, there definitely would be resistance, but I think more men would easily get to a place where they are like, okay, yeah, I understand why you need this. Yeah, let's do it. Right? Men are easy. They easily come to that place where they can acknowledge
Hey,
the
I
need.
can say yes. That's it. I totally understand. That's the money you brought to. I don't have an entitlement to that money.
Mm.
It'll be more challenging for women because that was the money that was money that you did before got married. I think women still have some entitlement to that
I
money.
think women have a hard time differentiating who you were before you met them and what you are when you meet them.
Right.
Who you were before you met them means you were rich and you're a rich man with a lot of money, and they assume that you have to transfer whatever it is you were before into that marriage. That's why she thinks she is entitled to some or if not all of the money that you had before you met them, right? Because again, you've been working all your life just so that you could meet them and provide them with the best life ever. I think that's what, and again, not every woman thinks like that, but most women think like that. They feel like men need to work really hard, so when you meet them you can bring everything that you've worked for and then start taking care of them, right? Or start providing.
Naturally, most women feel entitled to a man's money. Most women, they were taken care of by their dad. They were taken care of by their boyfriends. I mean, I'm not talking about, when you go out, what does a woman expect? You expect you to pay the bills.
You pay the bills, right?
If you guys go out, even when you're dating, even if you guys had the same allowance, boyfriend and girlfriend, the girlfriend still expected the boyfriend to pay for the stuff, even if she had money. So you train men and train women like that for the beginning of time, since the beginning of time. You socialize men and women like that, and do you think that doesn't really play on how people are motivated into getting into relationships? It does. So if you train women to continually depend on men, and I don't think there's anything wrong in that. I think women should find strong men to depend on. You should be able to go out with a man, and a man should be able to take care of the bills. I don't find any problem with that. I think you have a harder time reconciling that this is just, it's not an emotional issue, a rational decision that someone has to take to bring up a prenup, than someone who has been socialized over time to take care of the other gender. This is just a fact of life. Yeah. So it's part of socialization. It's part of our natural instincts. It's part of our evolutionary biology over since the creation of time. Men have to provide and protect women, even if the woman comes in with significantly more in the relationship. It's just part.
At least at this time, that's what it is. No, but we don't know how the next 20 years might look like. I don't
You
know
know,
what relationships might be like when my son or my child is at the age to get married, right? So, yeah, at this time, that is what is happening.
well,
I think there's
society has developed in such a way that people can work and survive on a basic level. But if you want to succumb to natural instincts of having a family, of raising one and providing for them, I think we'll all revert back to our natural gender roles. I don't see that changing. Sure, women have made leaps and bounds in terms of their development and their contribution to the society in terms of
Mhm.
career, and a lot of women are killing it now. Make me think, what happened when people used to divorce when there were no prenups? I mean, granted, divorce wasn't that common back then, but people still divorce. Um, but what
I
was,
think the man had so much power and authority back there when I believe everything that was owned by the man. Women only until about that same time where women had the rights to own land. You remember the part of the world where women can't own land. Like if you have enough money to buy land, you have to find a man, a brother or an uncle or husband to
this?
put the land in their name, right? So I think it was obvious that if there was a separation, the husband or the man probably has everything in their name and owned everything.
Right.
And where does the woman go? I'm sure the courts were as biased
Yeah.
towards women
Right.
as they are towards men today in certain cases, right? So you take your husband to court and say, I own half of. They start asking you, how did that happen? How do you own half when you've been sitting home for the
Right.
past 20 years raising kids? You've not worked
Yeah.
a dollar for the duration of the marriage. So how do you claim ownership or part ownership to a property that he bought?
Yeah.
Right. So I think those arguments were probably easier to push through the courts, or just society wouldn't even allow you do that.